Thanks.
I'll pause, resume. Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm letting everyone in. Hi, Council. Just admitting a few more people in, and then we can start the meeting.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Okay. Uh, Welcome, everyone. The time is now 7:02 p.m. on February 12th, and I call this meeting to order. We will begin with a land acknowledgement given to us by President Kalajian.
Hi, everyone. Just give me 1 minute really quickly. Okay, can everyone hear me? Perfect. All right. When I was asking about land acknowledgement, I began to reflect on my own Armenian heritage and how my family became settlers in this country. You all know me as Emily Kalajian. The IAN at the end of my last name is an obvious giveaway to my identity. In Canada, I am privileged to hold this name with pride. However, my family in Istanbul, Turkey, are much more weary, to such an extent that their last name was changed to a Turkish one as a form of protection and assimilation. While teaching me about my own heritage, my grandfather, or as I call him, Dede, has also inspired me with his vigilance to learn about the country he is a settler in a country that I, in turn, am also a settler in. We have had open discussions on residential schools, the water crisis on reserves, and he has asked me what my university does to support Indigenous students' education. Before coming to Western, he told me that around the time he became settler in Canada in the 60s, so the 60s scoop became a threat to Indigenous families, removing children from their homes into the child welfare system. In his own words, my grandfather explained, this was his first introduction to the hardships of Indigenous community in Canada. While we can appreciate the opportunity this country has provided for my family, this experience is not the same for all ethnic and minority groups, particularly those of Indigenous descent. Ultimately, without action hold little meaning. A land acknowledgement is just a start to the reconciliation that needs to be done to work towards rebuilding the relationships we hold with our Indigenous friends and peers. We hope to take a step in this direction through our engagement with the Indigenous community at Western, who continues to provide Indigenous students with a safe space on land that's rightfully theirs. With that, I acknowledge that Western University is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenapeewuk, and Attawandaron peoples on the lands connected with the London Township and Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant wampum. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society.
Thank you, President Kalajian. We will now hear the Western song. All right, we will now move on to roll call. So counselors, please head to Echo 360 to record your attendance. Also, just a reminder, if you're a proxy for a counselor, then you also need to do the roll call. So your proxy should have given you your their Echo 360 login. All right. Thank you, counselors. We will now move into the approval of the agenda. So I'll just give a little summary. The agenda includes the following items. So first, we will do approval of the agenda and minutes, followed by chair comments given by me. We will have the executive presentations, a board of directors report by Mr. Barry. We'll then move into our for action section of the meeting. So this will include a motion to elect 3 outgoing council representatives to the hired VP panel, followed by a motion to approve executive reports, a motion to approve amendments to the standing committee terms of reference, a motion to approve amendments to constituency council president terms of reference, and a motion to approve amendments to the peer support center usage policy. So after those motions, we will hear a first reading of the motion to remove the health science resource members from the USC, the motion regarding the council approval of the USC budget, and the motion to approve the BIPOC and religious students position paper. Our part two meeting will include the VP, UA, and EA elections, a second reading and voting on the 3 outstanding motions, as well as the time for questions and comments from the Western community, and finally with any new business items. Before we move to approve the agenda, are there any questions regarding the agenda of this meeting to be made at this time? Okay, are there any amendments or points of debate to be made at this time to the agenda? Finally, are there any objections to the agenda? Okay, seeing as there are no further questions, amendments, or objections, do I have a mover to approve this agenda? Counselor Matsukawa, and I need a seconder, please. Counselor Saha. Okay, we will move to Echo 360 to vote on the approval of the agenda. All right, the motion passes. We will now move in to approve the minutes from our previous council meeting. Can I please have a mover to introduce the motion? Councillor Chai. And can I please have a seconder? Councillor Matsukawa. All right, are there any questions regarding the minutes? Are there any amendments to be made at this time? Are there any objections to the minutes? All right, we will continue with the minutes as approved. Please move to vote in Echo 360. All right, the motion passes. We will now move on to comments from the chair. All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you are staying safe with the winter weather. Just a couple reminders for everyone. So first, I'd like to say to please RSVP to the council dinner by next Wednesday, February 19th. I've sent out a Google form in our last council-wide communication. We've also put it in the council drive, so you're able to find it that way. If you have any trouble finding the link, we also sent it in, or we will send it in Slack, and you can also message us if there's any problems. As the VP, UA, and EA election period begins, we would like to provide a reminder that campaigning is not permitted in any USC space, so this includes at council meetings. Any individual involved in the campaigning process is allowed to be in the gallery during the meeting, but anyone wearing campaign-related clothing, merchandise, or actively talking about their campaigns, in any way, this could be considered a violation of election rules. So just please keep this in mind, especially on February 26th when we invite the UA and EA candidates to speak. Also, for any faculty association or affiliate who didn't fill their seats during the general election period or who still have vacancies afterward, please email Dane with updates on your membership as these seats are filled as soon as possible. The deadline for this is the 24th at 12 p.m. Anyone who's not properly registered on the members list can't be added to the VP voting roster or onboarded onto the USC. So this applies to returning counselors as well. Unless you inform us who's filling these seats and when they will be filled, we won't know. So it's the outgoing president's responsibilities to ensure the incoming team is connected with the USC as part of the transition process. We recognize that not everyone has their elections at the same time, so just please keep us in the loop and keep us updated. And just finally, just as a reminder about rules now that we're on Zoom today. So if you would like to speak the same way you, instead of like raising your placard, you'll use the raise hand function on Zoom. Please avoid using the chat function for any sort of communication, just because we have to, like these meetings are public. And so, but chat comments are not publicly posted when we post the recording. So just to ensure transparency, avoid using the chat function. And make sure you are muted unless you are called on by myself to speak or have speaking rights deferred to you. Yeah, okay, we can move on. We will start with the February Council executive reports. So do you want to take it away, President Kalajian?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Things to ask me about. I'm going to New York next week. Fun fact, I'm super excited. Watching a Broadway show should be really fun. Seeing an old friend I met at Western back in the day who's there for grad school. Really pumped up. Next, top highlight, new I just said new SC Pres. New USC Pres. Super excited for Kathleen Henricus. We've already started our transition, which has been super wonderful. Yeah, worked really hard. I know there's lots of you in here who did the same thing. Campaign's never easy. Congrats to everybody. It's a long road, and I feel like no matter what happens, you learn a ton about the job, you learn a ton about yourself. So kudos to you. New elections coming up, as has been said so eloquently, VP elections, which is super fun, and I won't be the only person in the House replaced, so that'll feel good. We have UA and EA, which is super exciting. I know the campaigns have already started, so good luck to those candidates. I also went to the education gala, so I saw Grace as a Zoom head in the crowd here today. She did a wonderful job with her faculty. It was a super wonderful night. The food was great. Everyone looked so good. Velvet was like the material of the night. I feel like all the girls were in the same kinds of dresses. I was like doppelganging with like the dean and a couple other students. It was awesome. And then for updates, so transition. We kind of created a little bit of like a curriculum for each of our execs to follow, which was something that was really important to me. For USC execs to follow in years, beyond me too. I think one of the things that the USC does is we always do transition. It just varies from year to year. And some people having stronger ones than others. And I think it's just really important to standardize that. My HR background in me is coming out here. So I'm really looking forward to all of that. It's going to be great. The full team will be announced by around the end of March. And then, yeah, I went to a dam management panel, brought the BMOS baddie back out in me. I got to talk about the program, got to talk about the path to the CHRP. It was really, really nice to connect with some business students as well. I enjoyed that. And we talked about the USC and how they can get involved. Updates on the code of conduct. Thank you so much to everybody who went to the student feedback panel. I think it was honestly probably our most successful feedback panels, in my opinion, from the ones that I've been to, just because you're able to provide so many, so much of your own context and perspective, which is really wonderful. So thank you again for taking the time. Updates on that will come out towards the end of the academic year. But it's really wonderful to have the first ever opportunity for students to share their insights on this. Next is the deadlines for VP roles. As I mentioned, the full team will be hired by the end of March, but the deadline's actually tonight to apply for one of Daniel, Sarah, or Shreya's roles. And knowing that if you're thinking about it, or get them in, if you have friends thinking about it, midnight is the deadline. We are getting a visit. USC is going to be a vacation destination to the Carleton Student Union. They're coming in to talk about our governance structure. So we're going to give them a tour, do a kind of a full lesson on how we run things here with our board and our council. So that'll be really wonderful. Ethan, who's here today, will be helping me out a little bit with that and our full-time staff as well. And then we also have a mini film festival coming up at the end of March. More details to follow at the beginning of the month. But we'll be accepting student submissions, which will be really cool. And then some Forest City film submissions as well, and kind of combine it into one day. That's it for me. Not too much this week. It was like 3 weeks since we last talked to you. And when we realized we had to do our council updates, we were like, wait, didn't we just do this? So there might be some repetitive things from us, but it's only been a couple weeks. So yeah, that's everything. And I'll pass it off to Mateen.
Thanks, President Kalajian. I now invite Vice President Batista to provide her report.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. For my Ask Me About, I put Alan Walker. So I went to the Alan Walker concert and that was so fun. It was my first time ever at like an EDM concert. So super cool. I got to meet him. He's a cool guy. For my highlights, it's election season for the VP, EA, and UA positions, which is a little scary because I felt like it was just yesterday that I got elected to this role. Other than that, I'm just so excited to be able to transition the incoming VPUA soon. Another highlight is Advocacy Day. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that was a success that happened yesterday. Huge turnout, so cool. And I think I learned a lot about how to make our advocacy initiatives more engaging to students and regarding like our future advocacy related events. I think I've learned a lot from Advocacy Day. So that's that. And then Alan Walker again. I already touched a bit about touched a bit on that, but the concert was super fun. So in terms of updates, so we're still writing the sustainability and anti-sexual and gender-based violence position papers. I actually just met with the Western PACES working group today to do a focus group. So the PACES stands for the President's Advisory Committee on Environment and Sustainability. So the focus group was full of various Western administration. And so I kind of reiterated the priorities that we are going to be seeing in the sustainability position paper, things that I've been hearing from students in consultations. So things like waste management, food redistribution, transportation, sustainable transportation, things like that. And yeah, they all received really good support. All Western administration present were really on board with what I was saying. So when the Western is currently working on their climate and sustainability strategic plan, so when that comes out, which will be after my term is over, but if these priorities that I reiterated are on the strategic plan, that would be a huge advocacy one for us. So just going forward, going to work with Western administration to see that these priorities are implemented. There's also an open forum happening on March 7th at 1:30 p.m. So this open forum is basically an opportunity for any student to give their feedback on sustainability priorities to the university. And this, you do have to register in advance. So I will be sending a link in the Slack for you to share with your counselors, with your councils. And you can also find it online under it's called Shaping Sustainability Priorities, a Campus Conversation. So if you search that up, there will be a link to register. But yes, I will be sending a link after this meeting. And that's just to kind of give feedback again on priorities that students have regarding the sustainability strategic plan that Western's working on right now. In terms of the structure of the academic year, policy. So I know I've been talking about this a little bit about this in the previous couple of months, but we've been with the working group has been conducting consultations the past couple of weeks, and we will be doing a consultation with the USC Academic Roundtable tomorrow. So your VP academics were sent a link last week to register for this consultation. And then also a mass email was sent to everyone's Western emails last Monday and includes a link to the survey for the structure of the academic year. That survey closes on this Friday. So if you could share this within your councils and to your constituents, please do. We're trying to get as much student feedback as possible on the survey. And then finally, Advocacy Day. So that happened. It was really, really great. And yeah, the interactive activity, we had a Kahoot. Over 100 people showed up to the Kahoots that we did throughout the day. So I learned a lot about how to make our advocacy more engaging to students. So hopefully we'll be applying this kind of what we learned to our future advocacy related events. And in terms of the advocacy related events, we have Menstrual Equity Day happening. Party-wise harm reduction event happening as well. Those promotional posts will be coming out soon. Once they do, please do reshare them. Share it with your councils again and your constituents. We just really want to see a lot of students come out if possible. And then last but not least, planning transition, still building the curriculum for the next VPUA. Very exciting. And yeah, that's all for me. Are there any questions? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite Vice President Watchis Johnson to provide a report.
Hi, everyone. Hope we're all staying warm, staying safe, and staying cozy because we get to do this at home. So for Ask Me About, I just put voting in our provincial election because that's a lot of what I'm working on right now, but also something that I've been very passionate about for probably my whole life. And I know all of you are very engaged people, and hopefully feel the same. So if you have any questions about how to vote, when to vote, where to vote, all of that, I will cover some of it today in my update, but the USC is trying to push out content about it. But if you have any specific questions, please reach out. My top 3 highlights, very similar to things other people have said, election season / getting replaced. I think it's very exciting to watch, very exciting to consult with the candidates and hear what they have to say. And I'm so excited for our next council meeting as well. My second update is, or sorry, my second highlight is GA Prep USA authoring. We have our delegation together after the election last time, which I love all of them. I think it's very exciting. We've done training this week. And then also, I put this last time, but these papers, you work on them for like 3 months. So, again, my highlight of this past month has been authoring this paper just because I think it's so special and so interesting. Um, and then last but not least, Alan Walker. This certainly was not my first EDM concert, but it was maybe one of the best, to be honest. He brought in his lasers, and I think it was really fantastic. In terms of updates, um, position papers, I think Mari already touched on the USC ones that we're working on. We're still consulting for both sustainability and gender-based and sexual violence, and then BIPOC and religious students is done and will be obviously presented later today. Advocacy Day happened. It was fantastic. I am actually very proud of the job that Mari and I did. I think we did great work, and I hope they can continue what we did in a similar format with some small, like, I already have lots of thoughts about the small tweaks I would make, but I hope it's something that can become an annual thing going forward. And then on the USA end, I've been doing a lot of work there. So I know I've mentioned this literally in every update because I've been working on it since the start of my term, but we have our strategic plan finally done and ready to be presented at General Assembly in a month. This lays out the strategic direction of the organization for the next 5 years. And I think this is really special because the past 2 years of boards for USA have not been able to finish this. This was supposed to be done 2 years ago, and the steering committee at USA just kept running into problems and having to put it off. So I'm very proud of us for the work we've done, and I feel very good about what we're putting forward. And then authoring delegate training and a campus visit as well. Those don't require that much explanation. Upcoming, the position papers that I already mentioned on the USC side. Everything else I'm about to say is a plug and or I need things from you. So first of all, Breaking Barriers, Empowering Women to Lead in Politics is the event. It's happening February 28th and March 1st. I think that you should apply. I think that you should send it to your councils. Applications close in 4 days on February 16th at midnight. You can find more information on the application itself. It's on the USC Instagram account, or you can message me if you have any questions. But even if you're not planning to go into politics, but you just are passionate about politics, are passionate about things that happen in the world, I think it's a very special, I think it's a very, very special event. And then yeah, I think a lot of what this event used to be, Women in House, me, Mari, and Treya all met there 2 years ago. And then also two of the VPs from last year's team went to it. So I think it's a very good breeding ground for women in leadership, kind of. I think it's just very special, and you should totally message me if you have questions. For the provincial election, so our next meeting, I believe, will be the night before it. So I want to get as much information out as I can to you guys today. And then hopefully your faculty councils are talking about this. If they're not, please make sure they are where you can and where you have time. But the election's happening on February 27th. There are early polls during reading week. So if you'd like to vote in your riding at home, if you're from like somewhere in Ontario and you're going home to there, you can vote over reading week at home at one of your balloting stations in your local riding. Otherwise, if you're voting in London, that's on February 27th. You can also vote by mail. I don't have the dates on here, but I believe you have to apply by the 21st to do that. And then we're running an event called Beyond the Ballot on February 24th. We have 3 out of the 4 candidates coming. We're going to do a very brief panel. I have like a couple guiding questions to ask, and then we're going to take questions from the audience, and then it's just going to be a meet and mingle with the candidates who are running in our provincial election. I would love to see all of your faces there. You can kind of learn more about their platforms and figure out who you want to vote for. And then the biggest thing that I keep getting asked is on-campus voting. So what I know right now is that there will be a poll in Saugeen, but I don't know who it will apply to. That information will not be available until February 14th. So as soon as it is, the USC will start posting about it. And then if it seems that polling locations are kind of far or hard to access for students, because sometimes they're walking distance, but sometimes they're like all the way downtown for students who live at Oxford and Warncliffe. So if that's the case, we'll be running shuttles from alumni, but we're going to make that decision based on where the polling locations are. Um, and then the last thing I wanted to mention for this is the Western Votes website is up and running. We've added quite a few things since the version of it that was used in the federal election a couple of years ago. So I think it should include all the information that you would need, which includes information about how to vote in your London riding, even if like your ID doesn't say your London riding, you can still update your student center and be able to vote with your London address if you want to vote here, which I think is so important to know and to again tell everyone you know. Um, so yeah, that website should kind of include everything I just said and also more information and answer most of your questions. But if you have feedback on the website and think there's things missing from it, please send me a Slack or a DM or an email or anything. Um, and also just if you have any other specific questions, again, please reach out. Um, and then the last thing is yes, Emily.
Sorry, Michelle, I'm not trying to interrupt you at all. Just one thing I
Yeah.
wanted to add as well is that with these polling stations, this is like completely out of our control. Like the best that we can do is like liaison and start the conversations with Elections Ontario. But like Michelle has done like absolutely everything she can to make sure that it's on campus. We've been emailing every single day, contacting them, working with Western GR. And so ultimately it's really in the hands of Elections Ontario and their budget. So truly, shut up, Michelle. She's done the work. It's just not really something that we can say, we have full pull over. So anyways, just wanted to shout out Michelle there because it really isn't an easy task and it's completely up to their discretion. So having on campus is super big and they don't always have that. So just want to thank her for that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, she is completely correct. As soon as the election was called, actually, I think even before it was called, I've been in contact with Elections Ontario trying to figure this out. But obviously, with an election called so quickly, they're very busy. Their response times are kind of bad. Um, and also, in the end, they said no to the UCC. They came, they looked at the space and said no. Um, anyways, okay, the last thing I also need from you, but presidents, you all would have gotten an email from me, I want to say sometime last week. Um, every year, USA gives out a teaching award, for a professor that Western nominates as excellent, dedicated to student learning. The full description is on that Google form, but presidents, it's up to you if you want to nominate it, if you want to ask your counselors to send in nominations, or some of you will have like VP academics or department representatives. If you send me more than one, I'm not mad about it. And then I'm gonna have my coordinator go through the applications and look at them and basically pick. Um, and then they'll get an award at a big fancy USA dinner at the end of the year. But I believe I gave you guys the deadline of February 23rd to fill that out, and I have no responses yet. So I would really, really appreciate if you guys could all fill that out um, as soon as you possibly can so that we can just start looking through the submissions. That is my last thing. I'm sorry that this was so long, but I'm done. Any other questions? Awesome.
Counselor Sharma, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the date for the submissions for the teaching awards was again.
I believe I have it set as February 23rd.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you can submit by then. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we can move on to Vice President Fullerton to provide her report.
Hey guys. So mine's nice and quick tonight. So, top three highlights, like everyone said, Alan Walker, he came with like three truckloads of stuff. Basically brought his whole production over here, which was really cool. I know we got lots of comments about how cool the lasers were. Unfortunately, they are not ours. Like Michelle pointed out, he did bring those his own, but very cool to have that on campus. And then we've been doing soft interviews, which have been awesome. Truly, I am overwhelmed by the positive experience that group interviews have been. A lot of the candidates will like make friends in their interviews, which is so nice. And they'll walk out and all exchange numbers and stuff, and usually walk out as a group, chit-chatting the whole way down the three flights of stairs. So that's been super, super lovely to see. And then my third highlight is the mascot race. I have been looking forward to that since like the summertime when that was proposed. Basically, Carl, Rick, and Emily all Oh, maybe I just outed that. I don't know. There was a mascot race. And then I didn't say anything. There was a mascot race and it was really cool. And it was between the affiliates and main campus, and it was awesome. So really loved seeing that. And then my own updates are obviously that Purple Beats happened. That was a part that we decided to do the genre of EDM based on feedback that Shreya had collected, which I know I mentioned in our last council meeting, but I think seeing how packed the Mustang Lounge was and truly how much people enjoyed it just really goes to show how important using student feedback is. So shout out Shreya. And then another update is that in-person self-hiring is complete. So all the in-person group interviews have now been finished. We had 2 full weekends, so last weekend and the weekend before that, of just like full days of group interviews. And those are now done, which is awesome. So right now we're just doing virtual makeup soft group interviews. And then my LST are also looking over the returner interviews, which were one-way spark hires. So that's ongoing now and will be done by the 14th, so in 2 days. And then further upcoming is grad ball. That's going to be March 29th, which is a Saturday. Daniel's like USC Open, which is like a charity golf tournament, is in the day, and then grad ball is at night. So it'll be a jam-packed, super fun day. You guys should totally come out. You don't have to be a graduating student to come, but you just have to want to go if you want to go. And then Purple Finale, still figuring that out as well. Hopefully that will be done and finalized soon, but still in the works as of right now. And then as Emily mentioned before, we have the film festival, which is coming up. It'll be the end of March. So we'll be in touch on like our Instagram and everything about when submissions open for student films. And then we're also doing Battle of the Bands, which I did forget to put in here, but Battle of the Bands is going to be March 12th at 8 p.m. at the Spoke. And submissions are going to be open as of Friday, and then they're going to close on the 28th of February at 9 a.m. So all of that will be on our Instagram. None of this is like news that you have to write down, but just fun little updates on my part. But that's everything. Any questions?
All right, Vice President Clapper, if you'd like to provide your report.
Okay, hello everyone. Mine's also kind of short. Not many updates have changed since the last council meeting. Also, I apologize. I'm incredibly sick at the moment, so I sound pretty stuffed up. But the new clubs have been ratified, 21 of them, and they were all trained 2 weeks ago. So they've all gone through the how to finance, how to fill out all the forms using Western Link and everything like that. Grants and awards coming out. I wrote this a couple of days ago. As of today, they are out. You might have seen on all of our Instagrams, we were kind of promoting it, but we have some awesome new awards, including 15 $1,000 awards for any undergraduate student who will be attending some type of professional postgrad degree. So whether that's med school, law school, a master's degree, direct PhD, business, whatever it is, as long as it's a professional school, you're eligible to apply for this $1,000 award. There's no catch. It's not a grant. You don't have to pay any of it back. It's just money back in your pocket to hopefully help out with some of the costs associated with applications and tutoring, all the sorts of things that go along with applying to those types of schools. There's also quite a few other awards, the typical USC awards. None of those have changed, so those are all still there as well. I encourage you to go click on the link, check it out. Even if you don't think you're qualified, read it anyway. You'd be surprised how many there are, and we're super excited for those. There's also, if you do get one of the awards, there's a nice little ceremony that'll happen and near the end of March, where we will be giving you your award and a little bit of recognition as well. Linked Up is confirmed for March 19th, so that hasn't changed either. We will be launching the tickets for sale, I believe, end of next week as well. So look out for that. It'll be a fantastic event if you are interested in having a job at all, ever, because we have plenty of professionals coming out. So whether you're trying to become a lawyer, a doctor, you want to work for the government, you want to work in entertainment, there'll be something for you. And even if you're looking to go to a professional school, we'll have plenty of grad students out as well, so you can come chat to them. It'll be a fantastic opportunity. Grocery shuttle, sorry, has continued. So we will be continuing the grocery shuttle until the end of the year now. So it'll run until April 8th of this semester. That decision was made essentially so that we could get a pretty good grasp of the actual usage, because it's difficult to decide whether or not service should continue if you only run it for 3 to 4 months. So we will continue running that until April, and then we will get some data back, and then it'll be up to the team next year, whoever is in my role, as well as the incoming president, to decide whether or not that continues or if there's any changes that should be made to it. Um, the income tax clinic. So the new income tax coordinator has been hired. She just hired the rest of her director team as well. So that'll be happening starting in the second week of March, and all the details will be finalized and posted on the income tax Instagram, which I'm sure will then be reposted on the USC Instagram so everyone has information. If you're unfamiliar with what the income tax clinic is, it's essentially a free service that the USC offers where you can go in and bring all of the necessary info, and a volunteer will help you do your taxes for free. So if you don't have an accountant and you don't feel like doing it yourself, it's the perfect opportunity to do some of your taxes for this year. We will be collabing with the Western Accounting Association near the beginning of the income tax season to kick off the income tax season, I suppose, with a nice financial literacy event where they will be talking about how to do your own taxes, how to make sure that you're in the right bracket. If you're an international student, what are your options there? So that'll be a really awesome event with some free food. So I encourage you to check them out as well, and make sure that you're coming to that event if you're interested. Again, not much different upcoming. Still, two big things in March: the income tax clinic and the professional development gala. So keep an eye out for those, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Vice President Menon, if you'd like to provide your report now, please.
Okay, hi everyone. I will try and make this fast. Asking about how much fun I had at Alan Walker. Everyone kind of already said this. So much fun, such a good concert. I've been to like a USC concert every single year since I started here at Western, and that was by far my favorite. It also was, Sarah mentioned it earlier, but it was really, really cool to see like a feedback loop close there with like we heard from a lot, my team heard that students wanted an EDM concert, and to see it like sell out and do really, really well was something super full circle for me. So one of my highlights, the other thing was Sarah also mentioned this, the mascot race. That was something that me and the VP comms from the other affiliates have been like cooking up since the summer. So it was really, really fun to see that happen. And consult season. So me and Daniel and Sarah don't have elections for our roles, so we are hired, but getting out and hearing people being interested in our jobs and being able to talk to students about like their ideas and different perspectives around like what the USC is doing has been super, super interesting and really fun for me. In terms of updates, Mari and Michelle already kind of touched on this, but Advocacy Day, that was something my portfolio was also a part of. And we had a lot of fun with collaborating to make advocacy just more engaging for students who might not be familiar with what the UA and EA portfolios do. So my team had a big hand in helping our social media um, reach different audiences in that sense. And then we also had a lot of in-person engagement that day inside the UCC, but we also sent people across campus trying to get their perspectives on some of the advocacy that we do. And Mari and I are kind of planning some similar stuff with that with Menstrual Equity Day coming up. I also got to visit Ivy Council this week. Shout out to Habiba and Saad. That was so fun. That completes our faculty council round tour, getting to hear what the HBA is up to and what they have planned for the rest of the year and meet their incoming executive team was really, really great. The last varsity games happened, so we saw men's and women's hockey in the past 2 weeks. So those are all the USC varsity games happening for the entire year. They were really fun to plan, and I really encourage you guys to continue going out to varsity games to support sports and recreation. They're super fun to do. They're free, and there's a really good vibe whenever people go to games. So yeah, that was updates from me. In terms of upcoming, okay, this is something that happened 2 years ago. My one of the VP comms from 2 years ago, Kimia, started this, and it's called the Correspondence Dinner. And essentially, this is like a free dinner for the Gazette editors, the USC executive, and council that you guys are all invited to. You will get emails from me very shortly. And it's just a community building thing for you guys to meet each other, essentially, because we all know about what we do separately. We work together in the sense of we correspond with the Gazette all the time, but it's basically just a community building event that will happen on February 27th in the Wave. It's completely free to attend, and it will include some lighthearted speeches slash roasts for each other. I will be reaching out very soon with some more details about who about like logistics and how you can RSVP. And it'll include, yeah, some speeches from us, hopefully some from you guys, and the Gazette. So if you have any questions about that, I will be doing most of the correspondence to that through Slack, but you can expect some messages from me very soon around that. Collaborations with Active Minds. So Active Minds is a club on Western that promotes mental health and awareness. And Mari mentioned this earlier. She's planning a harm reduction campaign that's going to be happening in the atrium called Partywise. We are planning to do some collaborations with them around promotion of safe consumption and the mental health stigma and association with substance abuse. So you can look forward to seeing some collaborations on socials for that. Get out the vote again, provincial election February 27th. Michelle and I have been working pretty closely with our portfolios on how we're going to engage students who might not typically vote in the upcoming election or people who aren't just that politically engaged, how we can reach them to, number one, know about the election and have somewhat of a plan to participate. So right now it's been getting just people to have that date in their calendar. So my portfolio and my coordinators have been working really hard on that. Last thing is the USC Voice Divestment articles. So, as you know, there was the motion that passed in council last semester, and we are planning a campaign, an informational campaign around that motion. And it will start, the kickoff kind of for that campaign is going to be a USC Voice article with just more information explaining how the process came to be, the perspectives of the counselors who brought that forward. We're still working out a time that we can all meet so we can schedule interviews and get the article up and running, but that will be coming out in the near future. So if the campaign is still a little bit shaky in terms of like what dates and when things will be happening, but it will be kicking off with the USC Voice article. That's all for me. Any questions? Cool.
All right, thank you to the execs. I now call up, or I invite Mr. Barry to provide a board of directors report.
Awesome, thanks. So I think today my report is pretty heavy on the finance, so I think I'm just going to start with that. I mentioned at the last meeting that the board was working on this new investment strategy, developing different tranches of money so that are kind of put towards different investments. And then those tranches have specific kind of things that they're related to in terms of operations, activities, and expenditures like that. So at our past board meeting, just on January 31st, we talked a bit about the establishment of four tranches. And I just want to walk you guys through kind of what that looks like. So bear with me, it is a bit financy. In terms of our first tranche, we have this operating account is what we're calling it. And that one you can think of as expenditures that are going to incur within the next 6 months. So it's specifically used for operational expenses and immediate cash flows. And then in that account, we earn interest on the associated bank account. Actually, like the bank account will give you an interest. And then also we're strategically investing in money market instruments, so low risk stuff. The second tranche is the short term. So this is expenses that we expect to incur in the next 6 to 12 months. This is specifically used for things like capital outlays and things that are actually confirmed in the budget. With this one, you're earning interest through money market instruments as well as GICs. So again, pretty stable stuff. The midterm tranche is expenses that we expect to incur in the next 3 to 5 years. This account is only used for things like contingency revenues and planned capital projects. And this one is, again, money market instruments, bonds, and GICs. Bonds is the addition there, which is a little bit more risk, but again, it's bonds are relatively safe as well. And then the final tranche that we talked about was the long-term tranche. So this is things that are occurring in the next 5 to 10 years. So it is a bit more far out looking. This account is specifically a reserve surplus, and this is where a large chunk of that investment returns comes from. It is the one that holds that TD managed portfolio, including money market instruments, GICs, bonds, and then equities as well. So there's a little bit more risk there, but the TD investment managers do a very good job of kind of hedging out risks and stuff like that. So the board has agreed that this is a good direction to go in. The idea is just kind of be smarter with the money and specifically around investing. And by doing this, we can actually use some of the earnings that we collect from our investments and put them back into the organization for things like renovations and other expenditures. In terms of the next steps, we're just waiting now on the advisors from TD to come back with recommendations on the actual specific amount of money that should be within each of these tranches. But I should have more information on that in the next cycle. In terms of day-to-day operations, I just wanted to kind of shout at the Spoke because they had a pretty outstanding Q2 in terms of sales, which was pretty interesting considering that the Starbucks opened right beside it. This really just kind of tells us that the Spoke is offering something that students love, which is great to see. And, hopefully we'll see this kind of success continue in the rest of the semester. And then in terms of just the well-being and financial position of the organization right now, I don't have any concerns to report. As always, we're still healthy. So I'm going to move on now to HR committee. So notably, what we talked about at the HR committee was the AODA audit, which is kind of pertaining to accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, sorry. This was just a landmark law that was introduced, I think, in 2005, and it was designed to create fully accessible Ontario, focusing on removing and preventing barriers for people with disabilities. And we passed that audit, so that was good. And then in terms of governance, we didn't have anything too substantial in terms of the governance committee. The work that they did this cycle was just kind of around updating bylaws in terms of references to reflect the current state of the USC, as well as ensuring that the nomenclature that's actually within those documents is up to kind of social standards and stuff like that of today's time. So that's really everything I wanted to talk about. If anybody had any questions about the finance stuff specifically or anything else, I'm happy to answer. I think we're good. Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. All right, I will now call for a 5-minute recess. So council, please take this time to take a break and we will resume at 7:58 p.m. All right, Council. I now resume the meeting. I'm hoping everyone is back now. Okay. All right. We will now move into our for action section of the meeting, starting with the election of 3 outgoing council representative to the hired VP panel. The motion reads, whereas the hiring process of the hired vice president roles requires 3 outgoing councilors to sit on the panel, and whereas the interview process will take place in person in March of 2025, be it resolved that council elect 3 outgoing councilors to sit on the vice president hiring panel. Can I please have a seconder for the motion? Councilor Chai. Okay. Anyone who would like to put themselves forward for this position, please raise your placard now. I realized I said placard instead of hand. Oops. Okay, give us a second. Keep your raised hand. All right. Okay. Thank you, counselors. You can lower your hands. Okay. So how this will work is candidates will have 2 minutes to speak on why they would like to fill the role. Kate will message the chat flagging for a 30-second warning, and then I will cut you off at the 2-minute mark. Following the speeches, we will have a 10-minute section for Q&A where any of council can ask the candidates questions. Okay, we will start with councilors alphabetically by last name. So that would be Councilor Aviliano.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm honored to be here before you on Zoom today as a candidate for the hired vice president hiring panel. This process is crucial because our decision will shape the future of student leadership at Western. I believe my broad campus involvement and experience in hiring leadership and student programming make me a strong candidate for this role. As the Health Studies Counselor and the Secretary for the Governance and Finance Standing Committee, I've worked to ensure student voices are reflected in policies and initiatives. Through this role, I have developed a strong understanding of governance processes, accountability, and the qualities needed to make effective student leaders. Beyond council, my extensive involvement across campus, from 3 years as a SOPH to working as a residence LST at MedSid, has given me a deep understanding of student life at Western. I've been directly involved in hiring and interviewing candidates for these leadership positions, assessing their ability to mentor, communicate, and foster inclusive environments. This hands-on experience has prepared me to evaluate candidates fairly and critically. Additionally, my residence leadership background has made me really familiar with how Western's O-Week operates. So if I were to sit on the VPOP hiring committee, for instance, this experience would be essential in ensuring we select a leader who can effectively support student programming and enhance first-year experiences. Finally, my work in event planning and student engagement as an EDI coordinator and events associate on the faculty of Health Science Student Council has strengthened my ability to assess leadership potential, teamwork, and problem solving under pressure. I'm committed to a fair, transparent, and student-focused hiring process, one that ensures we choose the strongest possible leaders to serve our student bodies. So I'd be honored to take on this responsibility, and I appreciate your trust and support. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Aviliano. We will next hear Councilor Chai. Did you wish to be a candidate for this?
No.
Okay. All right. Then in that case, we will move to Councilor Saha. So you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hey
guys. I'm also very honored to be putting forward my name to be on the hired VP panel. I think that these VPs are such an important part of the USC and creating a really great experience for Western students. And I would love to be a part of kind of putting that together. I think that I have some good experiences in terms of hiring. As the president of the English Society here at Western, I've hired a whole team of 20 executive members, which involved a lot of really understanding what roles are and how people's skills and qualities would pair with different roles. I've also had direct USC hiring experience. I was recently on the Purple Care Trustee hiring committee, where I really got to see how collaborative hiring works within a USC context and working with a set rubric and figuring out how candidates kind of fit into the qualifications. And so I've really learned a lot about a fair and transparent hiring process and also what it looks like to collaborate with people and make those decisions together in a USC context. Furthermore, coming from arts, a small faculty, I think that I have kind of a unique perspective to bring to the hiring panel compared to students maybe from larger faculties on campus, just to add a little something different to the panel as we talk about and discuss the different candidates and their merits. So yeah, I'd be very honored to have your consideration and to be a part of putting together this really important hiring panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next, we will hear from Counselor Teodorescu.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, I'm also kind of sick right now, so please don't judge my voice. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Angela, and I'm your kinesiology counselor. I think I'm super qualified for this role because just in the past 2 weeks, I've had to do group interviews as an incoming LST for the health sciences soft team, and this has provided me a very unique insight into how to be on the other side of it because I've only done interviews before, and that was a really cool experience, and I got to learn a lot. I'm also very passionate about giving back to first years, not only during orientation week, but throughout the year, since it is a full year contract now for faculty softs, and just being there to kind of see the VPs and what they're kind of looking for the next year and seeing what we can expect will be a super good insight. Um, Through the role, I've had extensive training and I've worked with USC admin. I've had training on interviews, bias, EDIDA, and I think this has prepared me immensely for this role. Through my time at Western, I've also explored lots of different areas, including being exec on women in fitness. I've kind of had an understanding of the club system, and I've also worked with outgoing LST to explore ways to better engage first years in programming and soft support. Um, I also think it's really crucial to see kind of the different perspectives. As also Asha mentioned, like being candidate is a bit of a smaller program. Not too many people in Can are interested in like student government, but we do also have a voice, and I think it's really great to see from our point of view as well. Thank you so much for letting me speak today, and good luck everyone with the snowstorm.
Thank you, Counselor. Next, we will hear from Counselor Triantafilakis.
You hear me? Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is George, and I'm currently the president of the Faculty Health Sciences Student Council, and I believe I'm qualified to serve as one of the three counselors for this hiring panel. Throughout my years on student government, I have seen what it's like when a hiring panel is not passionate for sustaining or building upon their current councils. This is something I've shown to be passionate about by putting my name forward for the board of directors and speaking hiring committees, which I was both selected for. I believe the USC offers so much to students, and as I'm graduating, I'd be grateful to be a part of this process to hire such important members for the USC. I'm also uniquely equipped to do so, as I've been a part of hiring for the last 3 years on my faculty council, where I've received training for the hiring in an unbiased and effective manner. I also have experience that relates to all three positions. For VPOP, I'm a two-time faculty soft who was selected to be a charity member and residence captain for both years. For VPSS, I was a part of the food support services for 3 years and have been a club executive in my earlier years and familiar with the process behind clubs. I've also been heavily involved in my faculty's degree panels and understand the importance of professional development events for students. Lastly, for VPSE, I've held many positions with my faculty council where my main responsibility was collecting feedback in an effective manner to ensure events and initiatives continue to improve and reflect what the students wanted. Overall, based on my well-rounded experiences in hiring and skill sets for each VP positions, I believe I'd be a great fit for this panel to ensure those filling into seats for our amazing VPs continue to progress and to make sure the students can happily call Western their home away from home. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to all of the candidates. We will now open an open question period. So if you would like to ask the candidates a question, please raise your hand. All right. Given that there are no questions, this closes the question period for the candidates. Okay, so counselors, we will be sending right now a Google form to Slack. So this will be a ranked ballot. So just a reminder how this works is you put your top preference as number one, your and so forth. Your bottom preference is number four to rank all of the candidates. If there are any questions or difficulty, yes, counselor.
Should those who are running refrain from voting? Can we vote or not?
Y- Um,
Okay, thanks, Dean.
yes, thanks, Dane.
I don't currently have access to the form.
Okay,
Sorry,
Council.
guys. Let me edit it. 1 second.
Yes, Counselor Parissis.
If you're proxying for someone, do you just vote for on behalf of yourself, or do you vote for the person you're proxying for as well?
You also vote on behalf of your proxy, so they should have given you like the appropriate directive on how to vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can everyone try again? I've just updated the link in both Slack and in the agenda as well for the proxies.
Yeah, it works for me. Oh, hi. I just want to ask, I can't I can't fill out the form twice for my proxy. I was wondering if it's okay if I only fill it out on my account.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, like it keeps saying that you can only fill out the account once. Or you can only fill out the form once.
Oh, are you putting your own email? Is that why?
Yeah, I only have my proxy Echo 360.
Okay. You can put there, you can either just put a separate email, because we've noted that like you're a proxy for someone.
Okay, okay. Let me
Yeah,
try that.
or you can use your like the proxy's like USC email if you have that.
Okay, sounds good. Let me try that. Thank you.
No problem. We currently have 26 out of 37 responses. So, counselors, if you can please make your votes, that would be great. We are still waiting for 6 counselors to cast their ballots for this election. The voting period will close at 8:20. So please put your vote in, and if you're having technical difficulties, please send me a message. Okay. The the voting period is now concluded. Sorry. We're just certifying the results. Okay, congratulations to counselors Aviliano, Saha, and Teodorescu. Are there any questions regarding the motion at this time? Are there any points of debate? Are there any objections to the motion? Okay, counselors, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote on the motion. Okay, the motion passes. We will now move on to our next motion, which is the motion to approve the executive reports. The motion reads, be it resolved that council accept the executive reports for February 2025. Can I please have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Matsukawa. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate? Are there any objections? Okay, councilors, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote on the motion. The motion passes. We will now move into our third motion, which is the motion to approve the amendments to the Standing Committee terms of reference. The motion reads, whereas the USC conducts continuous review of all documents and its policy manual on a rolling basis, whereas the current Standing Committee terms of reference require amendments to improve clarity, streamline responsibilities, and align committee activities with USC strategic goals, be it resolved that Council approves the proposed revisions to the Standing Committee terms of reference. Can I please have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Soto. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate? Are there any objections? Okay, Council, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote on the motion. The motion passes. We will now move into our next motion, which is to approve amendments to Constituency Council President terms of reference. The motion reads, whereas the USC conducts continuous review of all documents in its policy manual on a rolling basis, whereas the Constituency Council President terms of reference requires minor changes that aim to improve the clarity, transparency, and organization of the document, ensuring that Constituency Council Presidents can effectively fulfill their responsibilities. Be it resolved that Council approves the proposed revisions to the Constituency Council President terms of reference. Can I please have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Matsukawa. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate? Are there any objections to the motion? Okay, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote. The motion passes. We will now have our next motion, which is the motion to approve amendments to the Peer Support Center usage policy. The motion reads, whereas the USC conducts continuous review of all documents in its policy manual on a rolling basis, whereas the current Peer Support Center usage policy contains outdated references and lacks clarity in some areas, whereas unclear space usage, principles, and governance structures may affect the accessibility and effectiveness of the service, be it resolved that Council approves the proposed revisions to the Peer Support Center usage policy. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Pandya. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate or amendments to be made at this time? Are there any objections to the motion? Okay, Council, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote. The motion passes. We are now going to do a first reading of the next motions, which will be voted on in our next council meeting. The first motion is the motion to remove the health science resource members from the USC. Whereas health sciences is the only faculty with resource members voted on through the USC election, causing overrepresentation and confusion as programs already have counselor representation. Whereas this has led to inequities and confusion during elections, giving health sciences more voices in council compared to other faculties. Be it resolved that the USC Policy Manual Council Composition Procedure be amended to remove the presidents of the associations of nursing, kinesiology, and health studies as non-voting members. Be it further resolved that the USC only elects the FHSSC president and the 4 USC counselors from the Faculty of Health Sciences. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Teodorescu. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Councillor Sharma.
Not regarding the motion. I'm not able to log in to Echo anymore. It logged me out, and
Uh,
the session ID is not working.
yes. So the Echo session has ended because we are no longer voting on anything via Echo 360. So it's not a concern because there's nothing else to be voted on.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
No,
Thank you.
no problem. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Councillor Matsukawa. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. So with the be it further resolved that the USC only elect the HSSC president, I was wondering if that would impact the USC EGC running the election of the rest of the faculty presidents.
President Kalajian.
George, do you want to take this or like I don't want to over to our motion.
You could go first. It's fine.
Okay, so to my understanding, no. And George, just jump in at any point, just to correct me. But for example, I come from social science, so I'll give you some context there. There are department, associations like psychology, political science, all these kinds of things, and they are not, represented in the EGC at all, right? They have their own internal elections, and so through this motion, to my understanding, George and some of the other health science representatives wanted to make this a little bit more equal across the board. So I'll leave it at that. And then if there's anything I missed, George, you want to fill in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I could give a little backstory too. So, um, basically, our faculty used to be made up of different, like the programs used to be their own faculties, and it was never updated. So it ended up us having four different presidents having USC elections, including the program ones, which you don't necessarily see among faculties, and it's caused a lot of issues, including underrepresentation with like our USC counselors, because a lot of people will end up thinking that these program presidents are the ones running for our counselors, which unfortunately has led to some vacant spots. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's perfect. So moving forward, like the KSA, for example, would not have their election run through the USC. It'd be like its own separate election.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, makes sense. Thank
It would
you.
be internal to the KSA.
Okay. Yeah, that was just my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding the motion? Okay. We'll move on to the next motion's first reading, which is the motion regarding council approval of the USC budget. The motion reads, whereas the cost of living is a concern to students, and whereas the political environment is changing rapidly and the USC needs to be well positioned to respond, be it resolved that council approve the 2025-2026 executive budget. Be it further resolved that council approve the 2025-2026 fee bill. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Okay. We will now move in to the first reading of the motion to approve the BIPOC and religious students position paper. The motion reads, whereas the USC's policy paper addressing the needs of BIPOC and religious students on campus is soon to expire from the USC's policy library, whereas the university community is increasingly diverse and students from BIPOC and religious backgrounds face unique challenges that must be addressed to ensure equitable access to opportunities and support, whereas advocating for BIPOC and religious students is a critical priority for the USC, aligning with our mission of fostering an inclusive campus community, whereas consultations have been conducted with students and university stakeholders, and BIPOC and religious students policy paper has been developed in response, be it resolved that council approves the BIPOC and religious students policy paper. Are there any questions regarding this motion? Okay, seeing as there are no questions, I now motion to adjourn the meeting and resume on
Sorry,
Jan-
Mateen,
yes.
I have to do the presentation on the budget. So I think I have to make a motion to speak on it.
Okay. Can I please have a seconder to introduce Councillor Malabanan? Also, my apologies.
All good.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the introduced agenda item? Are there any points of debate about the new agenda item? Are there any objections to the new agenda item? Okay, councillors, please raise your hands now if you are voting for the motion to introduce the presentation as part of the agenda items.
Oh. Should too.
Please keep your hands up. This is voting for the motion. Okay, thank you, councillors. You can all put your hands down now.
Mateen, do you have the presentation?
Yes, I believe you
Okay.
sent it to me.
Okay. Sorry, guys, you thought you could go, but you can't. Not yet.
Actually, Emily, I have the motion.
I can reshare the presentation. Give
Okay.
me 3
Yes.
seconds.
Thank you.
Emily, can you share it with the deputy speaker email, please?
Yes.
Because I'm sharing screen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and while we're setting that up, if you can raise your hand now if you are against introducing the agenda item, please raise your hand now. Okay, thank you, councillors. You can put your hands down now. Councillor Ahmed, is your hand up for a different? Okay, never mind. Sorry. Okay, and any councillors wishing to abstain from the introduction of this agenda item, please raise your hands now. Okay, the motion passes and the presentation will be introduced as an agenda item. So I'll give the floor to President Kalajian.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So the USC budget, I think this is probably one of the more important motions that will pass this year. We've gone through what your responsibilities are as counselors. We'll go through it again in this presentation as well. But at the end of the day, your biggest role is to hold the exec accountable. I think that's a huge piece. And we're the ones kind of guiding the student experience and the advocacy, and we really do want your input on this. We've done this through lots of consultation. We had a really great governance and finance committee conversation over the budget. There wasn't any concerns really. And so I'm really excited to have a further conversation about the budget and, again, why it's important to engage with it. So just the next slide.
It's just delayed.
All good. Yeah, so every year the president works with the executive and the staff of the organization to produce the annual USC budget. So this year, my team and I went on a retreat, which we do almost every single year. We kind of talk about some of the positions that, we see a really good future for, some that might need to change a little bit with the coordinators, with our AVPs, and also just some things that are being introduced. So a big one for me this year through my platform was professional development. And so we've added a completely new portfolio under a complete new section under Daniel's portfolio. And that's just one of many things. Developing student services is only about 2 years old. Same thing with SE. And we're doing that to improve the student experience and to reflect the things that students want to be seen, in our operations and the things that we do every day. And of course, that needs to be reflective of our books. And so I'm really happy with everything. I think it's a great balance. Before going into this, I will just make the note that last year there were no changes really to a lot of the budgets. And I think for a large organization, that does kind of put us in a difficult place because we do have to make consistent changes as things go on. We're a $36 million non-for-profit, as Ethan really noted on today. We're growing, we're in a great space. And so let's make sure that we're taking advantage of that, I think is the biggest piece of this picture. So I'm really excited to kind of talk about this with you today. We spoke about it with the board. They're really liking everything as well. And they'll also be voting on the budget in their own right, actually, in a week from now. So this is all moving forward. And speaking of that, let's move to the next slide. So again, just kind of wanted to go over everyone's responsibilities and where they kind of lay out when it comes to the budget. So for the executive and our staff, we assess the needs of the respective portfolios, like we said before, and then we have a full-time budget team who we all work with collaboratively and independently to make sure that this is feasible, our ideas are coming to life in the proper right. And then once our budget requests are assessed, per student fee increases were determined. As you mentioned from last year and a couple of times throughout the duration of our year on council, last year, what the executives decided is that the incoming executives would be able to tailor their lines based on how the presidential platform is kind of looking that year. So, for example, I went into this year and I really wanted to add more to my presidential initiatives line for events for like, for example, with 40 City Film. So I took some money away from our meetings line and added it to, a presidential initiatives line. The bottom line doesn't change, right? But we're able to move things around that way. And so it gives more leniency to really add power to the president's mandate, which is their platform. And depending on what the year looks like, that will change. So again, the bottom line stays the same. Council has to approve these lines once the year starts in the summer council. But the biggest piece of the picture is that the bottom line is there. And what you're approving today is that bottom line when it comes to the executive. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, amazing. So just to the next slide, please. So thinking about the board is the one who tells us if this is all possible, right? They have a lot more training when it comes to financial risk. We do literal one-on-one training with TD Bank and our auditors and all these people. And so that really allows them to make more of, I think, a defined analysis of what our budget should look like. Whereas if you go to the next slide, when we talk about council, you really have to see that does it really align with the organization's mission, vision, and values? And is it what the student body really wants, right? Because you're meeting with them, you're chatting with them, you know what your constituents want to see, but your main responsibilities are the executive budget and the fee bill. So moving forward from that, what we've kind of tokened this budget presentation and the motion, all these kinds of things, is funding our future. I think this year, one of the things that I've really tried to work on is laying a foundation for the next couple of years. And you'll see that through the couple of changes in the budget that I've made with my team. I think we want to be really forward facing. We want to think about longer than 1 year ahead. Because I know that long past when I'm here, the USC will be still standing and we need to build that up. So that's kind of the focus with this. So if you we have three main pillars of this. So the first is student experience. I think what we know about our student experience is that this is what Western students in general crave the most. It provides community. It provides a network of students to come together. You see that through O Week. You see that through concerts. You see that through puppy yoga, through craft night, the big and the small. It doesn't matter. What really happens with, student experience is that it allows people to make friends. And like I said, at the very baseline of that, it's the community at Western, and the USC is not only really good at what we do, we're nationally recognized for what we do, and that comes through our student experience. And then next is investing in our advocacy. I think anyone can take a gander at politics as of late, and you can definitely tell it's a little unpredictable. We've had a surprise election come up. Most likely we have federal election by the end of this semester or / spring. And knowing these things, we have to be equipped for that, right? Also, taking a look at the budget, for EA in particular, it was made during COVID, which is also not reflective of times now. It was about 5 years ago. So we need to be better equipped for those moments where someone like Michelle, we have big moments in Toronto or Ottawa, and we got to send her up there to be a representative and a voice for you. We need to make sure that we have the budget for that. And I think that's something we've also had to focus on. So it's that balance between, yes, we can be really fun, we can bring students together, but we also have to do the hard thing, which is the advocacy. And I think having both of that present really shows the priority of the USC. And then lastly is capacity building. building. And that really focuses on, that future-oriented mindset that I was speaking about before. This really has to do with the executives and their salary. And I'll get into that more once we head over to the executive bottom lines, as I mentioned before. But yeah, does everyone sound good? Yep. Everyone's perfect. It's hard on Zoom. This is like the worst meeting to do on Zoom, honestly, because it's like so important. But we got an online school, so we're fine. So for the most part, with the fee bill, we are only increasing three major areas. And that's the LTC and the health plan, as well as student buildings. These are things that we are contractually obligated to raise. And when we get to the fee bill, you'll be able to see that. But besides that, everything else will be a 1% increase in ancillary fees. So the inflationary fee is only going to be 1%, which I think is something that, we prioritize. It's important. But again, thinking about that, it can't always be 1% in the future. So something that we're considering that I want to bring to council and I brought to GNF, so if in the next slide, is an increase in student life. So this is in the fee bill, and currently we would propose a 3% increase, which would only cost students 46 cents per student. And again, this goes towards the regular programming. I think the things that bring students together the most when it comes to, the USC's mandated mission. And again, 46 cents per student. And I just honestly, at the end of this presentation, will raise the question to you if you all support this, because I didn't really want to put it into the budget and then you'd be like, why is that 3% without really explaining why we're doing it? And I wanted to give council the autonomy to decide that. So again, 3%, 46 cents going towards, students, their experience, and the fun stuff, the community stuff. And I think, those really important things that Sarah gets to work on to, highlight student success and all that wonderful, amazing things. So does that sound good to everybody? How are we feeling about that idea instead of the 1%? As I mentioned, the capacity building is super important. Again, we'll bring it up at the end of this presentation. Next slide. Okay, so now we're looking at the fee bill. You might have to zoom in. I definitely have to as well. But again, you can see for the health plan, it is at 7%. The reason the health plan is at 7% is last year we also raised the dental plan 7%. These were things that were unavoidable. We have to, they're completely underfunded. And I know Mauritius is on this call, who's on the Purple Care Trust, so he would know this background as well. But it was really important that we basically made that equal, those increases equal. Didn't want to do it in the same year because that would be too much. But that's what it's going towards. And the biggest thing with this is students can opt out. So if they're deciding that, I don't want to pay for the health plan this year, they don't have to. They have adequate coverage from their home, from their parents, and things along those lines. Again, student buildings, 4%. That's a contractual agreement with Western. We cannot do anything about that. Same with the LTC and the municipal government and the LTC. 5% is something that we cannot, negotiate any further. We're contractually obligated to raise it that way. So, obviously, we could do what we can to keep that number lower. We could, but in this case, that's not the option. So, just wanted to flag those couple things. And then when you see student life, currently where it sits is $16.23. My proposal again is to raise it up to 3%. Again, not a massive increase, but just something to continue to make those programming options sustainable for students. So does that make sense to everybody? Do you see where it says student life? It says 1623. So that would instead be 1% to 3%. Okay. Next slide. Here we have the executive budget. So this is where I'll give some more detailed information about salary. So just as a to be transparent, cost of living 100% has gone up. I personally think when you take a look at other student unions, the USC, even though it's double the size of some student unions, is actually paid less or equal to their executive teams, which I do think one thing I want to point out is that this is not reflective of me. I will not be getting this money. This is not self-interest. This is just thinking about the USC and that capacity building. So what I have proposed is to raise the USC executive salaries by 5% instead of 3%. The reason for this, again, goes towards cost of living. So right now it's around $47,000 per year. It would creep up to around $50,000 instead. And again, I look at other student unions like McMaster, their president's housing is completely paid for by their student union in the university, which is not a reality for the USC, which is completely fine. And I think this is not a job that anyone is in for the money, but it is really important to recognize that. So I just wanted to, make that proposal within this budget. And I do think it is a fair proposal considering the other salaries that are presented when we see other student unions in their operations. And again, we don't want financial barriers to be a reason why people don't run for these positions, right? Coming out of school, depending on the program that you are in, whether it be engineering or something like that, 50,000 is a significant pay cut compared to what you could be making in industry. And so that's something that we do want to recognize as well. So as for my line, the reason there's some ebb and flow is we took out the student senators MOU and put that into UA, as well as USC Day goes into student engagement, which I think is super important, as I think Shreya really did a great job with that role. And it's the whole point of what she does is letting people know about the USC and all the wonderful things that we do. And so that kind of represents the ebb and flow there. For Vice President EA, as mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, with respect to increasing the budget when it comes to our advocacy, that will see about a $30,000 raise. As a fun story to know why we need to do this kind of thing, this year, USA Advocacy Week was at the same time as the Taylor Swift Eras Tour, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I loved her concert. The hotel prices were about double. So the average hotel, you were seeing about $800, $900. Unfortunately, these are realities of the situation. And because of that, they decided to all rent a house to cut costs and things along those lines. So we were not paying $800 for a hotel because that's very, very expensive. But knowing that, and also knowing that these budgets were projected 5 years ago, travel and the amount that Michelle has had to travel this year because the government has been so wishy-washy, these are things that we have to be very, very, I think, stable with. And by presenting more money within her budget, it adequately represents how much she actually spends. And again, these budgets were made 5 years ago, post-COVID, right post-COVID. And I don't think travel, circa 2021 is representative of 2025 when there was a global pandemic. Looking at UA, not much change there. Vice President student engagement. So there's a bit of an increase because she has a new coordinator, which is the Indigenous Relations Coordinator, which I'm really excited about, and that will be under Shreya's portfolio. And then the other slight increase is because of salary, as mentioned before. And this one for Vice President Orientation and Programming. So this is something I've talked a lot about with our board, and they also agree with this move. And the reason for this in the jump is we're going to add a talent line. As you know, we have a ton of artists come, notably, all of my execs have talked about Alan Walker, which is super wonderful. We had a great time. But currently, where that money would come from sometimes is our corporate sponsorships, or we have the programming line that Sarah has in her budget, which is not really representative of exactly the picture that is going on, which is we are having artists coming in and they are performing. And so that needs to come from, I think, a talent line that's more specific. It's tailored to exactly what we're taking that money out for. And the proposed amount that I talked about with the board, as well as our full-time staff, is around $100,000. I think I've had a lot of conversation with you guys about orientation week and how expensive people like Tate McRae got and all these kinds of things. And we wrote a really good USC Voice article by Shreya and Sarah. They did it in tandem, and it was wonderful. And it kind of outlined how difficult and expensive these ventures are. So you might be wondering, okay, between, advocacy that's increasing with Michelle, and then Sarah with increased budget lines for talent, where is this money coming from? And I think that's the question that, is very, very fair. We have revenues that come from places like the Spoke. We make our own investments like we were talking about with Ethan. And instead of putting that back into those reserves, we're deciding we're giving it back to students for things that we actually really need. And as I mentioned before, there were no changes last year in the budget, right? Which puts us in a position where we do have to make, we have to position the USC best for the future. And so that's what these two moves are adequately supporting. Both the advocacy side, where we're talking about rent control, where we're talking about food insecurity, but also where we're bringing students together through song, through concert, and we know they sell out, and we know students want to see it. We hear it through our feedback. We hear it all the time through our surveys. Shreya talked about that today. It's something that's really important to our students. And again, I think at the end of the day, it's something that we are feasibly able to do as per the board, as per our full-time staff, thankfully to the wonderful businesses our staff runs here. And so I do, student dollars going back to students, which I think is super important. So lastly, student services, it's pretty on par because he's dropping a coordinator role. We no longer have a food support coordinator just because our food support became operationalized. So a lot of the work that we do for charity food drives and things along those lines will fall under Daniel's charity coordinator. And so that's why it's a little bit of an equilibrium there with the salary raise. So that's everything on the exec side of things. I think that kind of closes up the presentation. If you just go to the next slide. And yeah, I would be happy to answer any questions. I know it's a ton of information. So, we have a lot of time between now and the next council meeting. So I'm very happy to answer questions here, or questions, beyond that, if you want some time to think about this. But I'm really, really appreciative of the people that I got to run this by. I'm appreciative of the governance, and finance committee. And I think, like I said, like the biggest piece of this is that we are trying to set the USC up for the future. We are not making any financial decisions that would put us in a bad spot. And working with the board, with our full-time staff has been a really, really great experience. And I'm happy to bring this to you all. So thank you.
Are there any questions for President Kalajian?
Okay, and then with that, I'll have to make an amendment to the motion. But we'd have to vote on it for that 3% that I mentioned. I really wanted to give council that autonomy there. So I can probably work it out with Dane and Mateen about how we can incorporate that in our next meeting where things are actually voted on. So
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, President Kalajian. All right. Okay. Seeing as there are no other agenda items, I now motion to adjourn the meeting and resume on February 26th at 7 p.m. Can I please have a mover? Councillor Malabanan, and the seconder is Councillor Aviliano. The meeting is adjourned at 8:57 p.m. on February 12th. Thank you, Council, and have a good night.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Good night.